there. Did we lose Pam? She's right there. Oh, she's right there.
Helen needs eyes on hands at all times.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Helen.
So we changed this course, this workshop, not as drastically, I think, as it seemed like at first that we were going to change it. But we will explain why we changed it and kind of the thought behind talking about it as a group, so that everyone knew kind of what the motivations were in a second. But we added a new activity, so we're going to have everybody do the activity first, and then after we do the activity, then we're going to talk about it. So if everyone can grab a piece of yarn.
And stand up, guys. How about we? Stand up. Get active. Give yourself some elbow room.
I know, it's really nice.
I think you would make like a lovely pair of socks out of this. I don't know.
Also, just so everyone knows, we are recording this for people that aren't here. So if you have a question or anything, just make sure you speak up so that they can hear it. You need more? Here.
I do need one.
Okay. So this piece of yarn is going to represent your day. So this is all the time that you have in a day. So what we want you to do is stretch your hands straight out and put both fingers at one end of the piece of yarn. So like this. Okay.
So you're starting in the morning, perhaps.
Yeah, so this is your morning. So we're going to name some things. We want you to move your fingers down along the string for the amount of time that would take in your day. All right, so you're like this, then you're moving to the right. All right, so this is who the delegates. So wake up, get ready for school, and eat breakfast. We'd say about 45 minutes.
So maybe like wake up, finish that math homework you didn't do last night, put like a Pop-Tart in the toaster, forgot to brush your teeth, have to go back upstairs and do that, right? How much time of your day does that take up?
Okay, commute to school or work. So 10 to 40 minutes, we'd say. So you're moving it this way. So you're holding it.
I walk to school uphill both ways.
Both ways. Attend school or work, 8 hours. If you play a sport, you go to sports practice for about 2.5 hours. If you don't play a sport, you don't have to move for that one. If you're in a club, a band, if you have play rehearsal, you probably do that for about 1.5 hours to 3 hours.
Uh-oh. The string is getting awful short.
Dinner or family time, 1 hour. If you work, if you have a job outside of school, 3 hours. Instagram, Snapchat, social catch-up time, 1 hour to 2 hours.
I've run out of string.
If you run out, just hang on. Catching up on a new TV show, 1 hour, 2 hours. Social time, 1 hour. Sleep, 6 to 8 hours. Does anyone have any time left? No.
Oh man.
So, somewhere in there we lost all the hours in our day. Most of us, does anyone have any time left? No. So our days All right, well you should be teaching this class then. So what we saw there is we lost some of the hours in our day. But did we name anything that we didn't really have to be doing? The Snapchat one, maybe, right? But social catch-up was in that, so like, should I be allowed to talk to my friends?
The work part?
Yeah, the work part, the work or school part, we could have skipped that, then we could have replaced that with sleep, right? So what the point of this is,
Multitasking. Some things I do at the same time.
some things we do at the same time, that would help too.
Just not when we're driving, hopefully.
Just absolutely not when we're driving. You guys can sit.
Okay.
I don't have my license yet. Uber.
So the point of this activity, we are having this activity replace remember the, where you put in the hours and then you multiply them?
The personal time survey.
Yeah, the personal time survey. So some of the feedback that we got about this, about people who taught this workshop was, sorry, the light was really bright, was that people felt like the kids already knew that they didn't have any time. So every activity that was part of this workshop kind of started being like, oh, we started doing the personal time survey, it takes 10 minutes, and they already knew what was going to happen. They already knew they were out of time. So we replaced the personal time survey with the string activity.
I think it illustrates the same point, right, in a little bit less of a stressful way. That is also the overall tonal shift of this workshop. People were feeling stressed about it. The delegates would get anxious, especially middle level when you start passing out those cards in the final activity of the workshop. So I think it's like driving the same point home, right? That there's not enough hours in the day and we have to schedule our time wisely. But it is more quick. First of all, it helps us be on time teaching this class, and a little more casual, less stressful activity. The other thing, which Colin did not mention, but I think is a fun idea, is you can make it a bracelet afterwards and be like, guys, if you're ever stressed about your time,
No, I have 2.
just remember that we all are in this together. We all get stressed out. You can tell people, hey, I'm sorry I can't do that today. Could you give me an extension? This is not an individual problem. And I just think accessories are fun. So you could make it a bracelet if you're feeling it. That's not required.
So with that big tonal shift, one of the other things that we got from the feedback was that the tips and tricks and things that we were giving the students, they already knew. So we were talking about earlier, and a lot of us teach in schools, but they are starting to teach those like study skills, and we call them 21st century skills, and that's the buzzword for it, in order to try and get students prepared for these things, because they are connected all the time, but they are also very disconnected, and the feeling of time slipping away is pretty much a constant that they talk about all the time. So when we say things in this workshop, like that you don't have enough time in the day, they already know that, and that you should use a planner, they also already know that.
And have been doing that and are using a lot of these skills. Some of the teacher feedback recently too has been more so that the delegates have been telling us things we didn't know, right? Like there's a lot of technology and tools out there that if you're not an educator, you maybe aren't aware of. So we tried to incorporate that into this and just be like, okay, well they know these skills already. They know more skills, hard skills in a sense, than we do, so what else can we do with this hour of time to help solve this problem or help them manage their time?
And one of the things to tell high school students is that when they're making a commitment about time and decision, that no, the answer to a question, will you help me or will you do this? No is a decision, yes is a time commitment.
Wow.
So if they know that up front,
Right.
it helps with their time management.
That's great.
So no is a decision.
No is a decision, time, or
Yes is a time commitment.
Terry's taking our notes for us.
Yeah.
Did Harry truly say that?
You want to just do it?
Sure.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna go home. That was good.
so
That's the class.
yeah, that's the whole thing. Just get Dr. Ken to come in and do it for you, honestly.
We could do it in 5 now.
Just say no.
Yeah. So, do we like the yarn thing? Was there any feedback from that?
Does everyone feel comfortable with the yarn thing?
Collar? Can we choose a different color?
If you would like to bring your own bundle of yarn.
Yes,
You're
thank
more
you
than
to
welcome.
Sue Justice who provided these bracelets, cut them all up for us. Very appreciated, Sue. Thank All right, so I guess we'll just run through it kind of from the top down. If you look in your lesson plan, the structure has changed a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah. It's very discussion focused, so we wanted to give you guys some tools on how to drive that discussion and how to anticipate the discussion based on the feedback that we kind of saw. So at the beginning, the first thing that we will still look at is that the quote, the time is at once the most valuable and perishable of all of our possessions. And that's a good time to have them kind of talk about what time management means to them and how important it is in everyone's life.
I think, again, it's keeping it positive, right? So time management kind of, instead of being a solution to a problem, think of it as like preemptive ways to deal with stress, right? Something that is not something you have to do in your life, but something if you employ in your life will bring you peace of mind or structure or increased efficiency, things like that. So just kind of starting it off with time management is important, not because you're doing too much, but because it can make your life enjoyable or more enjoyable.
So then you're going to do the time management activity, the string activity. Our suggestion was to have them stand to do this, just so you kind of get their blood flowing too. You could have them go in a circle if you'd like. You could have like 2 or 3 kids come up front and do it facing everyone. When I've done it before like that, that kind of created, and you'll hear those stirs as you keep going. We have the order of the things in the lesson plans. If you have feedback and you're like, I think this one would go above this one, please let us know. We like to sleep last.
Yeah.
And work and school first, so that it's kind of the required things first. And then sleep is the part that they miss. And the fun things are what the part that they miss. So we're gonna have a little discussion after that. They'll kind of tell you how they felt, if that's how their day kind of feels on a regular basis anyway for them. And then that's when we kind of do the one day, 24 hours, but in 1 week, how much time, there's 168 hours every week for them to get things done. Before that was in the personal time survey, so that same kind of conversation that comes out of that will come out of this piece.
I think another part of the math that's interesting, or is at least conversation provoking, is asking the delegates how they feel about 168 hours. Some people will respond, that's so much time, like wow, that's a whole lot of time. And then other people are like, how could I possibly get it done in that amount of time? So I do think asking that question, maybe not framing it, but kind of leaving it open-ended and then letting the delegates come to an opinion on it or share their opinion on it. I do think there is a diverse opinion on seeing it broken out this way that is a productive conversation.
And then the next point, it says 4-5, is the I'm so busy discussion. This was really, really a big thing that came back in the feedback from the delegates and from the SCs who taught it, was that they were getting into this conversation where they were like, you're teaching us that I'm really busy, I already know that I'm busy, and now I'm thinking about all the things that I could be doing other than being at LTC, and now I'm in this panic. So there's a note there to be careful with this discussion to turn it into to make it not turn into a complaining session. Like, I can't get things done because of all of these things. So we really wanted to give them a space to kind of mention those things and mention those stressors that they were going through, but not just complain.
I think a way to do that, or our hope for the way to kind of shape that conversation, is to ask the delegates, what's the difference between busy and being productive? So does anyone have an answer? What's the difference between being busy and being productive? Alex.
The difference between busy and being productive is you can be busy playing games, taking naps, that takes time. Whereas you can be busy folding clothes, clearing out the dining room plates and utensils, washing clothes, cleaning your room. So, but you're still busy both. But both at different types of it was being productive and influential approach as a way to kill time.
Totally. What I hear you saying is that when you're busy, maybe you're wasting some of your time, and when you're being productive, you're using your time wisely. What else? Any other differences between busy and productive? Ryan?
When I think of busy, I feel like you're scatterbrained and you have a million different tasks going on. And when you're productive, you, not necessarily tunnel vision, but you're focusing on one thing and getting a good end result from it. So more focused, I'd say, is when you're more productive.
That one is a good one because there's an example in here. Like, busy feelings are finishing a project and feeling relief that it's over. Like, the only thing that it is a negative feeling that you have to get away, versus finishing a project and feeling pride in your work. So we're really talking about that mental shift for them throughout these pieces of the discussion. Does anyone else have anything?
Yeah, that's the hope, that the conversation ends up there, that busy is inefficient and productive is efficient time spent. Yeah, Shane?
I feel like almost busy could lead to productiveness too. Like, I guess how Ryan said, like, you could be really busy, keep a lot of things, and you're very scatterbrained, but then once you like schedule and like think with plan, then that can lead to like being productive almost. Like, I feel like everyone's almost like busy at at one point,
right.
And you kind of plan it out and you can be productive.
Definitely. The hope is not to busy shame them, right? And busy is not a bad word, and these are hyper-involved kids, right? So it is something where it's like you don't want to make it sound like it's bad to be busy, but we are kind of trying to say like, hey, but like, what does busy mean, right? Is it the most efficient and productive way to spend your time, being busy?
So after a little discussion of this, this is an article that we pulled from a 2012 Washington Post article called "Exhaustion is Not a Status Symbol." And it says, one of the most universal numbing strategies is what I call crazy busy. Crazy busy is a great armor. It's a great way to numbing. That's what a lot of us do, is that we stay so busy and so out in front of our life that the truth of how we're feeling, what we really need, can't catch up to us. And I think, I've used this with some students. I wanted to test these kind of things out. And they said that they really resonated a lot with this. And I think coming out of the busy and productive discussion, it makes you feel less alone, that it's something that's happening everywhere. So like allow them to discuss how it makes them feel. Where does that crazy busy come from? Maybe it comes from pressures. They have a lot of pressures on them to get into the right schools, to have a job outside of school. They feel the student debt burden a lot more than I did when I was in high school. They know it, they feel it, they're anticipating it, so they're already worried about adult problems. So then after that little conversation, there's a second quote from the article. That says, when I interviewed really successful leaders, what I expected to hear was a lot of perfectionism, but what I heard consistently was, I do not attribute my success to perfectionism. In fact, it's the thing that I have to watch the most, because it will stop me from getting my work done. Healthy striving is about striving for internal goals and wanting to be our best selves. Perfectionism is not motivated internally. Perfectionism is about what people will think. Yes! So really getting them to just feel like, okay, I can be busy, I can be productive, this is something that I can do, but just because the people around me might be living in this kind of tumultuous way, I don't have to necessarily do that. And I think the biggest shift was getting them to think about the fact that their time management is theirs to do. Like Dr. and we can add that quote, the Dr. Penn quote in, but that they own their time, even if they feel like they're being stretched in a lot of different directions.
Does anyone have any questions about this? I think this is kind of the biggest change, where the workshop does get a little bit more emotional here, right? Like you are talking about how they're feeling, and that, I guess, I hope will lead to really productive, interesting conversations, but it is kind of uncharted territory for the workshop. Yeah, Julian.
So it says 5 minutes for this section. So do you want to like encourage a dialogue where you're going back and forth, or do you think it's best to keep it at 5 minutes and move on? Because I feel like there's a lot of good content here that you could have a good discussion, but maybe that's not the goal.
This is hard too in general with these discussion-based sections, and I think this workshop is one where we definitely want people to share but not comment on other people's shares, if that makes sense, where it's like definitely I would get a couple opinions, right, or responses from how does this quote make you feel, but maybe try to steer it away from them being like, oh, well, I don't do it that way, or commenting and critiquing.
I think, and just like being very honest, obviously, in this room, but the hard part is that we want them to know that they own this, but we aren't equipped to take everything that they might give us. Like this, it can't be a therapy session. So I think somewhere in the line, and I think that was what was kind of hard for us looking at it, was somewhere between how do we, and that's why we wanted to talk to you guys about it too, was because we want you to feel equipped to end the conversation and to say like, okay, we're going to talk about why you might feel crazy busy, what kind of pressures are there, hey, let's look at this kind of thing. I want you to really try and internalize this, but it isn't your job as an SC to fix their problem for them.
And then I think hopefully this is where the structure of the class will kind of be like a life vest for you, because then we go into the hard skills, right? So you kind of have that more emotional conversation, and then it's like, okay, these are, back to the original workshop, like the hard skills to manage your time.
And I think that's why we kind of limited the time, was so that you felt like you were like, I am not in this room with this group of high schoolers for an hour while they tell me all their problems. Does that make sense?
One of the ways to manage that is to ask the question, how does it make you feel? Have everybody write for 45 seconds. Say we're going to share 4 of them, no comments on them.
Right.
You pick 1, 2, 3, 4, and you say we're managing the time.
Yeah.
And then you stop it and just move on.
Right, and I like sharing that with them before you do it, right? Like,
Right.
we're gonna write for 45 seconds, I'm going to pick 4 of you, so you're like setting the agenda, keeping yourself
And you're not going
accountable.
to comment on the 4, you're going to
Right.
read what you wrote, we're going to move on.
Great, okay.
Yeah, I think that's
Terry, write that down.
red pens out.
I like that, Ken.
Thank you.
Hey, Victoria, maybe we should try that.
It's called
It's just recorded for all the people. Perfect.
That's right. You want to come over for dinner?
Okay.
now I don't want to go.
It's the Making Time Count list tips. I think this is the hard skills,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah. So these,
And this isn't a change.
no, these were in there before, but these 6 things have always been in the handbook and the lesson plan. It's kind of the solutions to the issues, right? Take time to prioritize, saying no, knowing that that is an answer. Be realistic, unplug, multitasking, and making your time yours. So just kind of driving home that if you do these 6 things, hopefully the intent then is you won't feel crazy busy.
And this is the things that was in the old one. So the save time, waste time was in the old lesson plan as well. It's still in the handbook so that they can go through and do things that save time. For example, using the planner, staying organized, get feedback from them about things like Riker said, I multitask when I do some of these things, so multitasking, things like that, that will come up. They have these skills. So that's what, again, the feedback was that they knew how to fill out this chart, but they didn't know how to do how to deal with it internally. So we're trying to bridge that gap without making it too much of you having to solve their problems. So this is really the same as before. So how do you distinguish a priority from a want? So all of that stuff is from the original lesson plan.
So that is like the first T-chart that they're going to do in their handbook, and then there's a second one. So this is a new addition this year we're going to try, but how you're going to start the conversation is ask the delegates this question or pose this situation. You have to leave for a social event in 20 minutes, but your phone is only at 15% battery. What do you do? Phyllis, what do you do?
You leave it home.
We're not getting money of those.
Tessa?
You put it on airplane mode and you charge it while you're getting ready.
Okay. Pat?
Buy yourself a cordless charger so that it can come out with you and charge while you're going out.
You leave and you plug it into the USB in the car.
Okay, so then, yes, this is a metaphor that we're trying to drive home is a short-term charge, right? You're never going to get your phone up to 100% in 20 minutes before you have to leave for basketball practice, but in the meantime, you're going to try to do something, either put it on airplane mode or plug it in for 15 minutes or use the half-dead wireless charger that's in the bottom of your backpack, right? It's like a short-term fix. And that's kind of the theme of this next T-chart we're going to do.
That's a nice slide.
What a graphic.
Wow.
Miss Track Tessa, this is beautiful. Good job.
Nice.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah.
PowerPoints, man.
Yeah, so
So
I don't know where this fits in the order. I guess you would ask the question, what do you do that?
right. So then how do you do it to yourself? So we know how we would do it with our phones. How do we do it for ourselves? So the point of this, to give you guys a backdrop, you would not need to give them all this backdrop, but is trying to get them, they know, so we can do the save time and waste time. Those are very like practical, concrete things. Then charge versus recharge. The way we were thinking about this T-chart was charge is things like you charge your phone, you might charge your phone overnight so that it has 100% battery. The recharge is the quick fix you guys just named to get it up enough so that you can go to your social event. But do we do that for ourselves? So we wanted the kids to take a second and reflect on things that make us charge and recharge. So your charge are things that you would never want to get rid of. I need to get 7 hours of sleep every night. So that should go into my charge category. I do not function with less sleep than that. So that should be a full charge. That is how Kellen gets fully charged, right? I may need, and you can give examples like this, you may be, your family's really close to you, you need to call your grandma once a week. That gives you a full charge, that is how you kind of keep yourself you. And then the recharge is when you feel like you're at 15% battery, but you have a time commitment. You know that you can't say no to things, because that's a problem that they're having. It's like, yeah, I know that this might be a waste of time, but I still have to go do that other thing. So what is your recharge? So things to do when you start to feel stressed. If you have 10 minutes, if you have 15 minutes, if you have 20 minutes. So for someone that might be, I take my dog for a walk. I really like to sing in my room. I go take a shower. Like, does anyone have any examples of things that they would do that would be recharges?
5 minutes with a good book.
5 minutes with a good book, yeah. Yeah.
5 minutes with my dog.
So like a break in the middle of, and then you can use that example, a break in the middle of studying. You're feeling really overwhelmed and you're feeling like you're at 15%, but you need at least 60% to get through whatever the next thing is. 5 minutes with your dog is not a waste of time because you've chosen it and it is a recharge. Does that make?
It's kind of, I mean, like to avoid the buzzword, but it is the slide on self-care, right? And that is a part of the conversation that we're trying to have, where it is like you're gonna feel stressed, it's unavoidable. This is how you can kind of manage your emotional health in those moments.
Yeah, we're trying to do it like, because I just think that they're so inundated with information that also is sometimes falsified. So like self-care, if you like baths, then bath bombs are self-care. But buying a bunch of bath bombs doesn't mean that you're taking care of yourself. Like that kind of dichotomy, like figure out like this is for you. Like if 5 minutes with your dog helps, if you need that every day and you need to make sure that you give yourself that time, then it is not a waste of time. Just because someone says that you aren't doing your homework, if that is what you need to remain like who you are, then that's what you need. If you know that you could go for a run for 15 minutes and that would make you feel better, that is a recharge. That is now productive because you've chosen it. Yeah.
You can also like make it seem like it's not like a waste of time, but it's going to make you more productive in when you have to do your things.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
Like that recharge will help you be more productive, so you're almost maybe spending less time on the work.
Exactly, and maybe you still have to do that thing, like how you wanted to go to that social event, or you had to go to practice, you needed your phone to be recharged. You have to study for your test, but if 5 minutes with your dog can get you there, that'll be it.
There's also a question of guilt. Like maybe
Right.
the kids don't feel this as much, and I could be wrong, because you'll have some type A personality kids who are like, I can't sit with my dog for 5 minutes because I have to be doing something else that's going to result in a better college application, or, you know, as an
I think
adult.
you feel that way.
I mean,
Yeah.
we get this, especially if you have children, even if they're grown, there's feelings of guilt in what you could be doing versus what you should be doing.
And I think that's kind of these two linked together in that sense, right? Because I think that might be the response from some of the leaders in the room is that guilt, and it's like then framing it in a sense where it's like, no, this is going to make you more productive because you're going to be healthier and happier and more focused, right? So it's like not something selfish, it's not something that you should feel guilty about, it's something you're taking care of yourself by doing, right? And then that in turn will make your application better or retain more information, whatever I guess the cause of the guilt is.
So say the delegate answers they go on social media for 5 to 10 minutes. Do you think that is a bad answer? Not necessarily.
There are no
Like-
bad
like
answers.
try to keep people off of
I
screens
think,
and whatnot?
I think then you can say like, okay, and then what are you getting from that? And then you can say, what is the downfall that might happen about one of these recharge things? Like, if I call one of my girlfriends, then all of a sudden we're going for a walk, and then we've got ice cream, and you can tell a story of like when one of your things that should have helped you derailed you, and then say like, okay, how could we do that? We could set a timer. We could go on social media for 10 minutes, set a timer, and then go back to our other thing. We know that I think it's really about getting the kids to think about intention.
But if that, I think that
That's like- that's
probably,
an easy
yeah,
answer,
that
though.
will
Most of them
come
will
up.
say.
Yeah, and I think 5 minutes on Facebook is fine, but 45 minutes on Facebook might then be not productive, right? And then hopefully again, the structure of the class will kind of provide you some guidance or way out, because then you go back to 5 steps of scheduling, which is that like more tangible action step. So if it's like, all right, well now you know what your recharges are, how you can like incorporate them into your time management practice. These are other tools you can use even to hold your recharges accountable or manage your time better. These haven't changed.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say with the recharge things too, like all of what Dr. Ken's saying, anytime that you're talking about like their personal emotional, I think they take a second, write it down, like the waiting for them to write it down, and then choosing like 2 people to share, I think will help you manage your time and their emotions better. And then you can get to this. Like then you don't feel bad cutting someone off and moving on.
And it is important they write it down, so make sure that's happening in the handbook so they can refer back to it too.
What if they say my parents won't let me?
I think their parents won't let them do what?
Spend 5 minutes with the dog. You're wasting your time. Back to
I think that they're like these young leaders, I think it is okay to say to them like, if that's something that you feel like you need, I think that you should have a conversation with your parents about it.
Right now, there are a lot of parents that would look at that and be like, no, you have an application to write, or you have I mean, being a parent of kids this age, like, I'll say, go lie face down in your bed for 5 minutes, because that's what you need, no phone, no anything. But I am friends with a lot of people who would not.
Like no social media until your homework's done, right? Like even if that's a recharger, if they're not able to do it.
Right, and then maybe we suggest to them to like pick 2 recharges that are not social media, because social media is not really a recharge. They're definitely feeling crappier at the end of that. That's for damn sure. So maybe like if we suggest those other things, and then I think that the most that we can do for them is provide them a platform to say like, look at the things, be realistic with yourself, pick 2 of them that you're going to be like, Mom and Dad, this is now how I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take the dog for a walk. And allow them to have that discussion, and tell them that they can have that discussion. And unfortunately, I don't think we can fix everybody's thingies.
But that is something, I mean, to know for next year, or maybe be mindful if that comes up when you're teaching these workshops. Please let us know or take note of that, because I mean, like how to talk to your parents about your stress might be next year's change.
Yeah.
You know, something like that.
It's just hard because they're going through a lot. We don't want to put you guys in a position, and I don't want to be in a position. I work with kids all the time, and I do not want to be in the position of them telling me,
right,
of needing to go talk to somebody else kind of thing. But you want to, I just think that this is trying to provide them those skills to have the confidence maybe to say to their parents, I've chosen this thing. And maybe by saying like, yeah, but if you want to pick up that recharge, make sure you delete 2 of those things that truly wasted time and left you depleted. And tell someone that. And if you really feel so burdened by this, you need to go talk to your guidance counselor. Like that sounds really harsh, but we don't have much of a lasting relationship with them afterwards. So maybe even saying like there are people at school for you to go talk to if this is something that you don't feel like you can talk about at home, might be good.
Or seeking out a teacher, or maybe a small list of of options, because my kids wouldn't have gone to their guidance counselor. I could if I led them on a leash. They just so maybe just if they say who do I see, who do I go to, who will help me?
Right. What's the resource there? Did you have something to say, Teresa?
Yeah, there are like so many studies that show that like this is productive, taking that time. So if these parents are that like they want to get into the best schools because they've read all of this stuff about how their kid needs to do this, this, and this, maybe if there's so much of it online to use their resources, find some of those articles, show it to their parents so that they have that kind of thing to back it up. It's not just LTC, it's well-known knowledge now, you need that recharge, so if they have some of those resources too, you can, it's on the web, kids, so they just are, they find it.
Yeah, in the book, definitely.
Like the Energy Project.
Yeah.
Here's the question too, because I think we have to make sure that we don't, go off on a tangent and have every kid come with a guidance counselor afterwards.
Right.
So maybe we have a month, like maybe we can figure out, I think we do need to identify some of those non-social medias.
Yeah.
And maybe we can create a list and we can have some links and just kind of like, hey, this is our way of helping leisure.
Yeah.
Because all I can think of is a kid going home being like, well, at LTC, I was supposed to come and talk to you when I want to do social media.
Right.
Email to teach my kid. So I think we have to I always like anticipate the problem. So I think we come out and say, hey, we realize this, we realize it's different. I mean, every house, you don't have a phone from this time to this time until your homework's done. My kid put a study, they're 3, but if he put a study in front of me, I would say, I don't care what that person has to say, I'm still going to. So you're going to have parents that are going to be like that. So I think we have a month to figure it out, and I think we can put some of these things together, and it's going to help the teachers not really derail the class.
And I think that the time thing is like what Dr. Ken said and what you're saying, because you don't need them all to share. Like you are trying to give them the tools and have them start to think about it in a slightly different way than the panic. Like the feedback was just that the kids felt like they were in a panic in the workshop. We need them to not feel like they're in a panic, but also you can't solve their problems for them.
To go off what he just said, if we provide them each with like a quarter sheet of paper and they write down their like top 3 or 4 recharges, it's something they could like stick in their name tag or like keep in their planner, so then when they're thinking of it, they're like, oh, I have these things right near me and I remember them. Yeah. So then that can be their way of writing it down so they don't all need to share, and then they have that list that's not social media and they take it with them.
That was really my idea.
I don't think I don't think we got you the T-chart in time, right? I think the handbook, the LTC handbook, might not even have the recharge.
Yes.
It does?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have it
Okay.
here.
It's in
Pam
there.
added it for us.
Of course, Pam
Yeah.
added it for us.
410.
Okay.
I just think it gives them that permission to look again at that list to
Yeah.
say it is okay, and that, I think that permission is the thing that they have to learn, that it is
Yes.
okay to own their own time.
Yes, Brene Brown, who is the one who like talks about the quote, or is the quote sayer, talks about permission slips a lot. And I think that's kind of what the recharge charge is. It's like giving yourself permission to take care of yourself, which is a message we can say, but like at the end of the day, it's on that delegate and their family and there's like whatever to take it on, you know. But I do think it probably won't come up too often that they're like, I can't, my mom won't let me, you know what I mean? If you're only picking 2 of the shares, I hope maybe that won't be
I
one
think the
that comes up
controlling of the
much.
sharing is, and the writing. I think allowing them the time to write will.
I'm just gonna say, and I don't have an answer, but I think we've like hit at a point that there are times in many of these workshops where things do go a little too deep in the emotion, and how can we best equip ourselves as staff to just shift the conversation away from that, because we're not in a position to be giving advice to them, right? And there's a lot of ramifications of that, but how can we just equip ourselves with either changing the tone of the conversation or providing them with other things that can help them? So I don't have an answer, but I think it's something we need to think about for this class and maybe some of the other workshops.
I think that's really true. I think the resources guide is something that maybe should be created, right, for this class specifically, and probably other ones too. But hopefully the structure too. I think that's kind of my default, right, where if it's like just getting too emotional in the recharge charge, it's like, well, thank you for sharing that. These are some steps you can take, right?
And I think being comfortable moving on, and I think also we are talking about this a lot. I don't think it's actually as much time in it is not scheduled to be as much time in the class as, it's just the things that change.
2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 2 minutes, the other thing is 5 minutes, it's just the same that change, and we just wanted to give you guys, I know we're talking a lot, but we wanted to give you context for what the change was, and then also anticipate the issues that might come up, but it really is not an overhaul of the whole class. It is like every couple minutes we're changing what kind of tips and tricks we're giving them. I think the one thing we can do with Victoria's point right now is, and I think that we've done a good job of it recently, is because we usually co-teach classes now, talking to your co-teacher the night before about like who's gonna keep us on time, how you're going to deal with that kind of thing, like so that you don't ever feel like you're alone in that moment. If that helps.
And I have to say, I appreciate the tidbits and information that Ken gives us that we can use in the classrooms. Those tips absolutely help all of us to manage the time and make the transitions easier. So that would be a nice thing that we could work on in the future too, just different strategies for us to make these transitions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we're gonna do the 5 steps of scheduling, and then this is like very brief. They do this, everyone said that like we talked about a planner, and all the kids were like, we don't use planners, we use this. So just have them share like 2 or 3 things that they find are helpful as far as electronic planners are concerned. These are all like quick little, they're just giving each other advice.
This is the activity.
And then this is the, but wait, there's more activity, which is pretty much the, right?
So here you said, please return all the weight but more cards. That wasn't what was stressing them out?
So we still have to do them, I think, to drive the point across, but our like hope for this is to not do it quite as much, right?
Okay.
Not give them as many cards, and then the actual like hope and desire is that by the end of this class and moving it to the end and kind of giving them a mix of hard and soft skills, it's like maybe one delegate will say no to you when you give them that card, or like, I'm sorry, I can't do this.
Okay.
So you're like driving the
Okay.
point home that it's
I
a
get it.
choice, right? And you can say no and that's an option, but we are still doing them. I think the message there is just like be mindful of the vibe of the room, right? If they're stressed out or it's pushing back. There's a lot of cards too that come in the packet. You don't have to use all of them, maybe 2 or 3 per schedule group. But
And like you, and also the hard part about deleting that was that it stresses them out, but it's also sometimes fun. Like it gets their brains out of this other mode that they're in. So if the tonal shift of the course is that about getting them to think about intention, then you can say, we're gonna do this. This is gonna be what a day feels like. They did the string thing, so so it's tactile at the beginning and the end. So they did the string and then they're doing the, but wait, there's more. The big note is the middle schoolers, give them less. Way, way less, I think was the note. You feel free to manage your time, and if they're having trouble coming up with their planner and you're giving them to them, you do not have to use all of them. You do not have to drop them off. You can think about the way that you drop them off. If you want someone to say no to you and nobody has, maybe ask them if they, like, you know, these things you have to do, but this one I'm gonna ask you if you want it, to see if that discussion is prompted.
Right. I think that's a good note.
In 4, we have bolded, stop this activity before too much frustration develops. Doesn't matter what's middle level or high school.
Yeah.
You have to kind of judge that yourself. And you don't need to use all the words.
Yeah. Okay. And that I think is a good thing with the co-teachers too, is that you can look at each other and be ready to stop, or maybe give another one to another group, but stop the one, like, whatever. And then I think that's basically how we're gonna end. We have one more Brene Brown quote. I love Brene Brown and didn't know that article, the exhaustion symbol article, that I read like 5 years ago, that was really significant in my life. I didn't know that it was an interview with Brene Brown, so I pulled all those quotes, and then realized later that it was Brene Brown, who I now love. So sorry about that.
This is just the Brene Brown appreciation workshop.
She has a special on Netflix that just recently came out. But yeah, so the last quote is the last Brene Brown quote right after the planner thing. So sorry.
It's not a slide, but it's in the lesson plan.
Yeah, it's talk to yourself like you would to someone that you love.
We can make it a slide if you want.
Okay, so it's talk to yourself like you would to someone that you love. So maybe even putting that up during the daily planner activity. You do not have to discuss that. I just thought that it was like a nice thing to end on, because I think that the time management course is kind of taken like, just own your own life, take care of yourself, treat yourself like someone that you like or love. And then if there's time, the jar of life now is just if time permits. Everybody knows the jar of life is.
I found sometime this year like a better jar of life.
Oh, really?
Ooh. And I saved it somewhere. I don't know where I saved it.
Oh, is it
but
this
I found
one?
something.
This looks different.
This one does look different.
Oh my, this is like,
oh, there's glitter.
This is fancy jar of life.
You want it. Money, cars, houses,
Money,
clothes.
cars.
But then when it comes time
Money,
to try to
cars,
fit in all
houses,
the important
clothes,
things,
houses.
you run out of space. And some things will have to be left out. And nobody wants that.
Mom? That's not good. They both said mom.
So keep that in mind as you go through life. Put the really important things first, and then find space for the rest.
I think this one is
Run out.
quicker than the other
Yeah,
jar of life video.
just the small stuff. Oh, one more thing to remember. No matter how full your life may seem, there's always room for a few cups of coffee and a good friend.
Oh, a lot of stuff came out.
That was like a messy life on the table, which then you have to clean up. Who's cleaning that up?
Yes, don't cry, we're still coffee. That's cute.
Okay, yep.
So that's basically it. So does anyone have any questions or comments? Positive or negative, like things that you think that shouldn't have been shifted, or things that, yes, Julie?
No, I think it's good. I think especially the recharge stuff, I don't think we really covered that much, and especially like mental health and stuff. Not that we're going to go into that path, but it's good to at least bring up.
You've been broaching the conversation.
Yeah.
Strategies.
Yeah. And I think, like, really, really when you look at the times, it is not that much of a change. It is just a change about, we just didn't want you to read this lesson plan and then suddenly feel like you had to have a big mental health discussion. You do not. You are telling them that they have power over their life. And you also have power over the time in the class. Move on, you know? But I just think that without, this class was stale for them without at least coming up with a strategy other than to keep a planner.
I think just adding the positive spin to this is really going to help build the class up better. So as you guys were describing it in positive ways and recharge type ways, I felt that energy come up. So kudos.
And please do take notes while you're teaching this workshop. We will want feedback after the fact, and I mean, this is like not a big change, but a change. So yeah, keeping that in mind if you do teach class 4, be looking for that.
If you teach it really well, they get out 10 minutes early.
Yeah. Everybody goes and gets like a pastry. We're recharging, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.